Are you coming back to school with me? We could have done it all so easily.
Hello, I'm your host Craig Thompson Wood, back again to do a painting video for this model Gakura for Monsterpocalypse, and I had previously actually fixed this model because he had a huge sort of, I badly glued it together and had a huge gap here. It's just this looked like an earthquake happened on his butt and in his lower back. But as you look at it now, you see you can't even really notice that at all. If anything, it's a little bit shiny here for some reason. But if anything, you know, it looks good. I mean, you can't tell. If you go back and look at the other video, you'd never know there was so much wrong there, and it's going to look even less noticeable once it's all painted. So just like as I say, don't worry about it. And actually, what's funny is it looks here like, look, oh, there's a bit of ridge. You can tell that you did something there, and actually I didn't do anything there. That's not, it was up in his butt crack here and up here in the lower back and through there. Anyway, let's get to painting. So if you've seen my previous video about like the don't worry be messy, this is actually the paintbrush I'm going to start with, and I'm actually even just looking to see if I have a bigger one. I've got some big paintbrushes here, just because I'm using, this one's a bit stiff. I don't want to use that one. Oh, this one's very stiff too, so I'll use this one. This one's got some pliable, flexible bristles. You know, and this expensive one was bought at the dollar store, so you don't even have to go buying expensive material sometimes for doing the painting. And I have all my paints ready, laid out to go here. So all the colors I'll be using today, I've got prepared, and my brushes and things I plan on using. So I'm just going to shake up this paint. And one thing I learned after a while is just like, why bother with palettes and things? I would normally put this into the palette and then scoop it up off there onto here. Well, I'm doing such a huge surface, like all of his fur is going to be brown. I'm going to do Gakura in the classic Gakura colors. It's sort of a brown and a bluey gray around here. I considered doing other colors. I definitely didn't want to do black because then it looks too much like Kondo. I want each of the gorilla monsters, the ape monsters, to be distinct. So let me just raise this up a little bit. I want them to be distinct, so I thought about it, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go with the classic Gakura. The classic Gakura was great colors. So here's what I do now. I just go like this, and I just go squirt, and I just put the paint right on them. I mean, why not? And this way I'm not wasting paint, right? And then I'm just going to just disperse that around. So just move it all around his back here, up his arm, because there's just so much surface to cover. There's no point in using a fancy fine paintbrush. I might as well just use the thick brush here that I'm using. Okay. There. Yeah, you know, sure, it gloops in some of those spots, but that's, I'm going back and I'm pulling it out of those spots. And so it's not going to stay like that. Let's be running a little bit low on brown. Okay, so that's some more here. Move it around. I'm going to pause the video as I hear somebody coming. They're probably going to want to talk to me about something. Nope. Okay. So the nice thing about this brush too, like, you know, you're saving your nice paintbrushes, your expensive paintbrushes, for more useful purposes. But also with a big brush like this, you're just covering the surface so much more quickly. Now, I know what some people will do too is they will buy a primer in a color. Like I I've always been sort of stuck in my ways, and I use black primer for everything, pretty much. I dabbled with gray. I don't really like white primer. I find I have issues with it, but some people will actually prime now in a color. So if they're doing like say they're doing like an army that was all green, they will get a green primer, and so that way the green is their base, and they don't have to paint everything green after they primed it black or something, right? So you can always look at that, but I mean, I wouldn't want to go out and buy a brown primer just to paint Gakura. I mean, if I was doing more units in brown, then sure, but I mean, Gakura's kind of it. So, and I'm just gonna, you know, again, don't worry, be messy. I'm getting in there, just making a mess of his face, but that'll all be cleaned up afterwards. The hands will be cleaned up afterwards. Already it's starting to come together. You can start to see it, and like I say, you wouldn't know this part I'm painting now, that this whole lower belly was just a giant gap, because I just done such a poor job of gluing it together. But you wouldn't know. It all went up the side here, into his lower back here, and then down here, but yeah, it is completely invisible now. I gotta keep my eye on the camera and make sure I'm keeping this guy on camera. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good for the brown. This is chin under there, and that's it. That's it for the brown. Now you see he's actually starting to come together. I'm just going to clean my brush and we'll get on to the next part. Okay, so going to move on now to the exposed flesh parts. So I'm choosing this. It's a wolf gray. So this gives this bluey grayish color. I think it pretty closely matches the original Gakura, which is the look I'm going for. And as before, I'm just going to boop, put it right on his tummy there, like the Pillsbury Doughboy. And I'm using a brush that's, it's not very fine, but it's not as big as the other one, because I do want to start at this point now. While I'm not overly concerned with being super neat and tidy, I mean, I'm also just not going to try to, well, I want to try to be somewhat neat. You know, I'd like to avoid going over spots again if I can. Get in there. Just applying this on. And I'm looking at it, it seems almost a little too blue to me. So I'm going to just use this up and have another think about this choice here, because maybe I will add a bit of gray to it just to lighten it up. Yeah, like that's it. You can see the, as much as I'm not trying to do this brush, it's just, it's not, doesn't have a lot of great control for those finer points. You know, let's just do his face in here. Just do a quick up around there like that, and I'll obviously fix all this up afterwards. Yeah, I think that looks okay. I think I like it. And there. Some more off his tummy here. Reapply it up here. That looks good there. Okay. And then I'll put some on his hands here. I'm really glad they went with the iconic subway train nunchucks from the first one. I remember that was just when everybody was so in awe and impressed with the first model. It was just, you know, oh my god, he's got a subway nunchucks. It was so cool. Now he was doing a double-handed one with it, so he was using both hands. I was just doing one-handed this time, but it's still good. Would I prefer the second hand on the train? Probably, but it's still good. You know, to have lost the train altogether, it just wouldn't feel like Gakura anymore, to be honest. So I'm glad they did make that decision to stay with that. Okay, let's drop it a bit here, just to make sure I'm still on camera. I'm gonna go around there. Making sure I'm getting all those spots again. I'm getting on the subway train, but I'm not worried about that. The last thing is going to be his feet. So, again, I know I'm putting blue on the base where I'm not going to want it, but that's fine. I'll clean that up afterwards. His toe in there. Try and make sure I'm staying on camera. And that looks good. Yeah, I'm quite satisfied with that. And I'll just take some more paint on the top here. Just, yeah. And even the brown in between the toes there, I'm not so worried because I am going to ink this afterwards, and the ink will settle into those spots, and you won't even see it, probably. And inking is not an exact science, but it's okay. That's it, though. You see, that's Gakura coming along. He's so easy because he's just really 90% of him is just, well, more than 90% of him is just those two colors, and then the train is just going to be an easy one too, because it's being from like the Toronto area. I'm going to go with the TTC, Toronto Transit Commission train, and they're silver, and I'm just going to put some red dots on the doors just to show like that would be the TTC logo. I'm not going to be too fancy with it. Just going to do his face, obviously, his nails, and then ink, and he's done. He's going to be very quick, this one. Okay, before I move on to doing some of the tidy up stuff, I'm going to do the last big bit here, which is the train. And as I said, I'm going to keep it really simple, and I'm just going to just put a streak of thing across like that, and I'm actually going to go back to my big brush here, make sure it's dry. I don't want to get any of I don't want to water this down any, because this is just, there's no detail work involved here. This is just smearing it on. And it takes a bit of practice getting used to like how much paint you would need, and if it were such that I'd put too much on, I could always just use my paper towel here to remove some, you know, just dab with a brush, wipe it off on there, and repeat as necessary. As it was, I did a good job of my estimation, and so that looks like it. And maybe a bit in there. Okay, and like that stuff will all be cleaned up afterwards. And yes, that's it. That's my Yeah, the new TTC subway trains are bright silver, very plain, very simple, which I appreciate. You know, if you want to get fancy with this, you could do all kinds of graffiti on the side of the train and things, but the Toronto ones don't tend to have that. I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to get too crazy with it. But I do want, I will do the windows. There you go. I will do the windows and the doors. I'll do some dots of, you know, blue and they're just colors just for the, show that they're windows, and then the little red dots. You do want some color to break that up. I mean, it is going to be broken up with the ink to give some depth, but it's you know, just a plain silver like that. It's hard to distinguish as a train. So I do want to do something to distinguish it and set it apart and make it clear what it is that we're looking at here. And even the little accordion pieces in between right here and stuff, where the joins of the train are, I might do in the black or some different color just to again break it up a bit, and you want some contrast and things in there just to make it look interesting. So I think my next step is going to be to do some tidy up. So I'm going to apply a little brown here. So I use the tops of the paint pots. I don't want to take up too much space with a whole palette, so let's apply that. And just find the spots where there is the brown, and now I'm careful with the blue on the brown or whatever, the silver, and just carefully apply the brown where I want it. This is where I am taking care with, because you know, I don't want to have to go back and forth, right? The idea is you just do your first job quick, messy, just to get the colors down, and then you go back afterwards and you clean it up. This is the cleanup, so the cleanup needs to be done with a bit more care. So that looks good in there. There. Under the arm. Neck here. So just carefully noting where the fur is. That's what I want, not the skin, just the fur. Noted. I just put some brown where I didn't want it, so I'm just wetting my paintbrush. I'm just going to wet that area and remove the brown. That's fine now. Down here. As I'm painting the detailed stuff, I've got both of my elbows propped on my knees to help keep my hand steady. And that's one thing people talk about, is, you know, how to keep your hand steady when you're painting. And around the back here. Bend over. Okay, that looks good. Other foot. Well, I'm considering I'll do two is a just show the like a dry brushing technique, just to give a bit more texture to the model, like show some differentiation between the colors of brown, so it's not all one solid color brown. I mean, the inking helps to break that up and makes it look different, but I'll show the dry brushing as well for this, because the dry brushing works especially well with fur. So if there's a model that the dry brush would be effective on, it would definitely be something like Gakura here. Right, so I'm just going to get into the crook of his arm there, and that looks good for the brown. Okay, so I notice there's some spots for the blue, the skin, that could use some touch-ups, so I will get to those. Okay, so just doing the same thing again, where I'm just going to put a little dab of blue there. I don't think I'm going to need so much this time. And just go back over this and look at the spots where maybe use a little touch-up. There. Nice thing about brown too is, I mean, it could also be dirt, right? But noticing, like here, for example, this is a whole big piece of his bicep muscle that I just neglected the first time. That's definitely something I have to cover. Oops. Because I'm trying to paint while on camera too, I just put a big blob of blue down this thing here. So just, again, don't worry about it. Worst come to worst, I might have to do a little bit of brown over top of there again. Let's see, I'll take another brush and see if I can just, well, I wet the space, and I'll probably do some brown over top again just to make sure it's the right color, because it looks a little bit bluish in that spot. Cheek there, mouth, the lip got a little bit of brown. Nice space. Again, I got some brown. Let's say sometimes it goes back and forth as you're trying to clean up. Do not stress, do not fret. It's all part of the process. But oh, the hand definitely down here. I got a bunch of silver on here. So clean that up. The fingertips up here, the side of the finger here. Go. So all tidied up. Now, next step is, I say next step, I don't know what I can do. I was going to say, no, well, next step is the details. I'm going to maybe start to use some of this blue here, though. And let's look for those window spaces. I'll just put the blue in there. It's a little tricky to get at, but tricky to get at also means that probably not being looked at least it shouldn't be, unless people are looking for things and examining it carefully But in terms of game purposes, this area shouldn't really be looked at. So I'm not going to be too worried about this. Putting some of the windows there. Yeah, that looks, oh, those bigger windows. Like there. And okay, fine, I got some wet brush, I'll just do those windows there. Perfect. Done. Is it done? Is it? There, that's done. Okay, so that's the blue. Now I'm going to go on to some of the details. Now, one thing I look to with models like this that are baring their teeth is if they have like a gum line showing. I know maybe he's got like some gingivitis or something, but the gums are red and inflamed, but it doesn't really, but I'm going to just put a line down there anyway. I don't want to go too crazy with it because red is a very eye-attracting color. And that's part, I guess, part of the reason why I like the red there is because it will draw some attention to the face. You want the eyes to be drawn to the face of the model, ideally. So I'm putting that there, and I'll go over top with the teeth. But just you want to start with the gum line first, if there is a gum line. And I guess while I've got the red out, I will I'll do my TTC dots, the Toronto Transit Commission. So dot there and there and there. Again, I don't. The train chain is. It's a fun detail, but I don't want it to be so distracting that it takes away from the monster that's carrying it. Right. So, like I said, red is a very eye-attracting color, so you want to be careful and put it in too many places. Unless the model's, a red model, but with a model like this, where he's mostly browns and the grayish blue, he's not super bright. So the reds, and as you look at it there, you already see like those little red spots are already starting to draw your eye away there. But it will be muted down when I ink it. Okay, so that's going to be it for the reds. I don't want to do red eyes. I'm going to go with a more normal eye color here. This one. What I do when I'm doing eyes, I put a little bit of black down, and I start off with the. So I noticed the iPad had cut out. Luckily, it only cut out the part where I had put in the stuff for his eyes, and now this is a gray that I have that it has the nozzle has sealed up, so I don't really have I can't dab it out like through the nozzle like I would want to, so I just tap a bit out or have other means to get it out. But yeah, so when it cut out, I just put it in there into the recesses of his eyes just to really give some depth in there. That's really all I've done, and so that's the part that I cut out. Not a big deal. Okay, so I'm gonna use the slightly larger brush and that gray, and I'm just going to do this accordion part here. Again, I don't want anything bright. Don't want this part to be attracting the attention. Just break it up from being the silver that it was don't want to keep it as like so and like so. There we go. So that's going to be pretty much it for the train. Now I'm going to go and do some nails and teeth. So applying some of the bone color down there. And this is what I'll be using for the teeth and the nails. So I'm just going to use my fine brush here because this is some finer detailed work. Get in there, and paint that nail there, 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 and his thumb. I was going to say he only has 3 fingers, but no, he's got the 4th finger there, but it's kind of in between his thumb and the. And then there. Boo. Those to his toenails. Gakura's pedicure. And then his teeth. So here I am going to intentionally no. Go intentionally over his lips there. That's a no-no. So just a little bit. That inside there. I'm going to intentionally go over top of some of that red. I want to draw that red back down again. I didn't want it to be so high up. Right. There you go. His teeth. And so I've got some extra a lot of extra this bone color actually. Put way too much out. That was a mistake on my part. But this is why I like painting in batches. So I have some orcs here for Blood Bowl. You see, actually I'd use a little bit of that brown I'd used earlier. And just going to get a less precise paintbrush. I'm doing, but this I like to do several models at once because sometimes you get into these situations where oops, I put too much out, and then you can just apply it to the next model. So I can just start using it on here, and then I'm not wasting that. And I can try and put it back into the bottle, and sometimes I do that. But if it's a color that nothing else wants, I'm not. But bone color is a very, as you can imagine, with fantasy games and monsters and teeth and horns and things like that, it's a very common color. So I'm usually not worried about that. But what I can do here too, I mentioned this earlier, is with a color like this, I'm going to go back to my big brush here. I'm going to take some on. I don't want a lot, so, it's just barely on the brush. Okay, so I'm brushing most of it off again, and I'm going to even brush it off on this paper towel, but then just gently drag it over the top, and it just starts to add some highlight to those spaces. So it's going to give it a little bit more texture to the model. So, and this is the kind of thing you do over the whole thing, and it's not, don't worry about being precise, because even if it goes over the blue, even over the bluish skin parts of Gakura, I mean, a little bit of bone is just going to lighten it up a bit. You know, see, I'll even do it over the skin parts here. You can see as I get to focus, focus you, just lights it up. So adds a little bit of brightness to it, so it's a good thing. Well, now that's too much. See, I went too heavy there. Those knuckles. Ugh, I did it again. I'm terrible. Okay, I'm just gonna keep brushing that off. I'll come back over that. Let's go over his chest here. Over his face. Muscle there. And his feet. His muscle there. Back of his hand, front of his hand. Just try to rub it off with my finger now even. You know what, if I just make it even on both sides, it's not so bad. It could be some dust and things on there. It's not going to be that noticeable. And around there, and so on. Okay. There we go. So you can see it's really starting to come together now. It's almost done. I'm just going to do his eyes. And you know what? Maybe a little more highlight on his, he's got a bit of a mohawk there. So I'll do his eyes, his base. I want to do his base before I ink him too. And then he'll be good to go. So for the eyes, I'm going to do some white in here. Well, I said just a little tiny bit, but not that tiny. That should be fine. Some little dabs of white there. Okay. Me personally, I don't know, I find I prefer doing the models upside down when I'm painting their eyes. I find I get a better angle in there. Okay, and again, the don't worry part comes in here. You can see it's not great. I've made some things here, so I just clean out the paintbrush, and while it's wet, just dab that stuff off there. And it's starting to run. So I'm just going to tidy that up. What we can do though too with these, I'm going to take my black and I'm going to go back underneath just to define that eye. And over here where it's a bit high up there, I'm going to redefine the eye at the top. And the same there. back out of his nose there. There. Oh, and look what I did. I did that. Too bad you don't have like an undo button like you do on computers, right? A lot of times what I try and do with models like this is I try and cheat. Just leave the eye sockets blank and then let the ink just sink into that space, and then the eye socket just looks shadowed and you don't even notice it. And again, unless you're looking for it and you look to see, oh, how'd you do the eyes? Then you see, oh, you didn't do the eyes. And you say, yes, you're right, I didn't. Oh, it's my bossy dog. Okay, now I'm going to put down, now for the base, I just use like a cheap craft paint that I got at the dollar store, because it's just the base, and I'm using, you know, a fair amount of it. So, but I'm using the same technique as I did with the dry brushing the fur. So you just want a very small amount on the brush. You want to make sure that, you know, for a dry brush, that the brush is indeed dry. So I'm just going to give it a couple more wipes here on the paper towel. That feels good. So I'm dabbing on the brush, and I want to, I'm just rubbing it over that. I just want to just catch the highest points on this. I don't want to, this is why I don't pour the paint onto the base, because I want to maintain a lot of the darkness of the original highlight, the original priming rather. So I keep it clean that way. And, you know, I'm just going to go over top. See that the brown and blue that got down there before? Make sure I cover that. And across the back. And across the side. The gray, and then I'm going to do the same with a craft white. Oops. Just to add that extra stark level of detail. Just sort of bring it up another notch. And my white is not cooperating with me. Oh, the nozzle's plugged. Right out of the cap here. See, it makes it nice here, where it brings out that texture of the base now. And I like to do this before the inking, so that way if I have ink that I need to, sometimes I can bring some of the ink down to, if I put, say, too much white in a zone or something, I can always just draw some of the ink off the model onto the base there and tone it down with the ink. But I think this one turned out pretty good. Just get in between his feet there. Yeah, see that? Maybe a spot there. It's interesting how it looks more noticeable, some of these spots on camera, than it does in real life with my naked eye. Now I've got a bare spot here where some of my sand came off. What I'll do is sometimes some of my models I sometimes put a little bit of blue or some other color in there just to make it look like some sort of fluid. Something was leaking. I can maybe put like a green, like he's just been pounding on globicus or something. All right, so that's the base, and that is it for basic Gakura. All that's left now is I'm going to wait, give him a good time to just dry. Don't want to do the ink when any of the paints are wet, but I'm going to ink him, and that's going to be him done. Okay, and now it's going to be time for the final step with Gakura here, which is going to be the ink wash. So the ink wash is the part I really enjoy because it's easy, and it means that I'm basically done. So I'm going to start off here on his train chucks. And again, I've learned to just apply it directly. There's no point in putting it onto a palette and then to this. You're just wasting through the transfer there. So doing this, and then you see it immediately starts to bring out the texture of the things in the train. Makes it look a little bit more worn in. Although if you've seen pictures of the TTC trains, it's been a long time actually since I've taken the subway. But they are quite shiny. But given that Gakura has been using this to smack around other monsters and buildings and stuff, it does seem more fitting to be like that. And you can see how it's sunk in some of the windows and makes some of the windows look like maybe they're busted out. See with the cracks there. It's all good. And you can see my brush is like a fantastic brush, but this is good for this because it's just, all I'm really doing is I'm pushing the ink around. I'm not worried about detail and things. It's not like I'm trying to get, I'm just trying to apply it everywhere. And where I see that it's pooling in the spots that I don't want it, that's where I'm going to just keep at it and move it to another location. Okay, so I'm going around here, up into here, and just turn it around. I just want to say I'm just dabbing to remove the ink, just to keep pushing it down. So I don't want too much up there. Just want it to, with what I'm looking for here with this is just to get in the recesses of the fur here, so you're not, so it just helps the fur pop, makes it look more real. Add some shades and things into it. So now this is the tricky part though. It's like where you have a smooth surface like his bare chest here on his tummy. It's doesn't work so well with the flat surface. So I'm really going to just concentrate on drawing that off of that. The ink wash is really meant more for the textured areas, so like where his muscles are here and such. I'm going to be concentrating on drawing that ink off of there, and so leave it there. Shouldn't use my thumb because I'm rubbing the paint off now. I will be doing a matte varnish afterwards to protect the model, as well as it just gives it a nice finish. But I might have to retouch up some things on the stomach there. And again, that's all part of it. Even at this stage after the ink wash, sometimes I do apply paint again. So, and that's a prime example there, like with the putting ink in the wrong spot. I just want it to be smoother, so I don't want ink there, so I'm not going to have to worry about reapplying ink afterwards. But now look at that, eh? I mean, it looks really shiny right now. Well, it is really shiny right now, but this is what part of the matte varnish is. But you would never have known there was such a gap in there before. And that's what I think is pretty amazing when you look at that. That really turned out well. Okay, this hand up here. Oops, I want the ink leaking out. And top of the hand. Sorry, back on the thing. address the hands here, just because it is looking a little bit dirty. I mean, he has been fighting in a destroyed city, so there would be some, but it's too much for my taste. So I've overdone it there. But let me, as I apply things down here, okay, see in the musculature here, I like it there. So much so that I'm going to add a little bit more ink here, just to really get that effect on this side as well. Put some more into his, oh, and on his face, yeah, really want on his face. So really just sort of give some definition to the teeth and things, breaks all that up. Actually, I like this done to the eyes too. It's hard to see right now, but it makes them look more menacing as it gives a more natural sort of pooling of darkness and light in his eyes there. Now that's gone in. So, and that's about it. Just looking for some spots here. Back of his foot there. Like I say, it's looking more like it's interesting, like how different it looks in person compared to on the camera. It looks much shinier on the camera than it does in person, but all that shininess is going to be taken care of by the matte varnish. So again, if you look at it and think, ugh, I hate this shine, don't worry, I hated it too, and I was really disappointed when I first did it. So that's why I went and bought this matte varnish, and when I started using it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is just amazing. So that is kind of it. Like I said, I'm going to retouch up the tummy here, because that's I rubbed that with my finger, and that was silly of me. Should have known better. But like, again, I don't want the pooling of the thing up here, because that is smooth surface, so there wouldn't be shading on that smooth surface. It might be dirt or something, but not shading. And but the ink is going to run, to a degree, it will run into the lower surfaces and portions and things. That's what helps it to stand out, make things stand out. But that is going to be it. So that is Gakura, and I will, when this is all dried, I will do the matte varnish. Well, actually, I'll touch up the tummy and then I'll matte varnish, and you'll see the final product. And so this is the finished Gakura now. You see how it all came out. I did some more dry brushing on the tummy here, just to even that out, on the chest and such as well. Just to, any of those flat surfaces, I didn't really want a lot of the pooled or any streaks of the ink, so I did just gently dry brush some color back onto those. I mean, I know you could argue away that the ink, the muddy spots there represent the smoke, the debris, the dust and dirt, etc. from fighting in the city, but otherwise I just wanted it to be a little cleaner. But you see how the ink really just settles in there and really makes those details pop out. And I really like how it worked in the train here. If I can just get to focus in on the train, there you go. Making those windows and those details in there just stand out. At first, you might have been looking at that and thinking I'm crazy, because it looked like it was just a mess of obscure detail. But you see, there's a method to my madness here. It works out. You just don't leave it in the one spot. You have to pull it around into the spots that you want, and then it works out. So, looking at the hands here. Okay, so you see how the ink went nicely between the fingers to create that shading in there. Pulled nicely. His eyes, have a nice sort of menacing look to them. The teeth and the gums all get the ink in there to help those details stand out, so you don't really have to do much there. And then, yeah, it just all comes together. And as you saw, like me talking, I sort of stop sometimes to point some things out and whatnot. But all in all, it only took me about 45 minutes, less than an hour certainly, to paint this. Very quick model to paint, and I'm really happy the way he turned out. So hope you enjoyed watching this. I apologize that I'm still getting used to painting on camera. So thanks again for watching. Please do remember to hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Are you coming back to school with me? We could have done it all.